search warrant!
A Michigan man is reported missing, but days later, a teenager stumbles upon a gruesome discovery, a severed foot and other body parts.
We got the key. Got the key. We have the key. Key master. You have it. Ready? Yep.
The disturbing case unfolded on September 18th when 41-year-old Justy Stillwell was reported missing. Detectives reportedly retrieved surveillance video from his neighbors days before he vanished. It showed Justy driving from his home in Bay City, Michigan on September 14th. However, he never returned. Investigators soon learned he was actually on his way to meet someone, another man he met on the dating app Grindr. But Justy would end up having a fatal encounter when meeting his date. Unknown to his loved ones at the time, they seemingly worried when he didn't show up to work on September 18th and reported him missing. On the same day, a horrific discovery was made along the shoreline of a local river. That's where a teenager reportedly spotted a foot and more severed body parts, including arms and legs in the Saginaw River, that were confirmed to be the body of Justy Stillwell. Detectives learned in their investigation through Justy's friend he was going to meet a user on the dating app under the handle Board. Authorities tracked the so-called Board's location to the home of another Bay City man, 40-year-old Robert Tweedley Jr. In body cam video obtained by Law and Crime, it shows police arriving to Tweedley's home on September 25th, armed in tactical gear to execute a search warrant.
Driver's side. No car in the street.
There's a Mustang in the drive. Lights can't ring.
No storm door.
State police. Search warrant. State police. Search warrant. State police.
Police, search warrant!
State police. Search warrant. State police.
Portions of the body cam video were redacted. However, minutes later, officers can be seen searching near the home's garage.
Nope.
They said they had a key.
Do they have a key?
Yeah, they supposed to have a key.
Let's just put it together. I'll take one from back there. Good.
We got the key. Got it.
Like the man here, and everyone was stacked up there, and one guy here. So this whole side is just long.
Yes.
I held hard on that long room. So we
Should
went
have tucked in with us.
right after that. Right, we went in, came out of that room. I was number 2. Should I have open door, or everyone else pushed into that room to the right?
No.
I actually went.
It was a closed door, right?
It was all open. They all came out.
But wasn't Majeski, didn't Majeski have that as angle? You were in the room,
Majeski
right?
pushed. Majeski was primary. He took the direct route. I came out of that room with you. Followed Majeski in.
But back inside the home, it appears officers have already cuffed Tweedley.
think we're good all the way back. It's just
Go
the
to the back, just there?
yeah, just the basement. Let's just do the basement quick. The upper floor is good.
According to police, Tweedley told them Justy came to his home on September 14th, but wanted to leave shortly after. That's when Tweedley allegedly pushed Justy down his basement stairs and strangled him to death. This is truly a horrific and disturbing case, but important to share. And part of the reason we're able to keep bringing you these stories is because of our great sponsors. And I want to quickly talk about one of our amazing sponsors, and that's Odoo. I'm sure a lot of you watching this might be business owners or thinking about starting a side hustle. Well, Odoo can help. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software with tools to help you run your business. I mean, look, I'm a cat mom and I want my cat to get some brand deals. Using Odoo's website builder, I built a site just for my cat buttons in minutes thanks to easy tools like AI copywriting and drag and drop features. 5 minutes later, and check it out, I now have buttonsthecat.odoo.com. So I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring our videos. And for our amazing viewers, you can start building your website now and get a free domain for the first year with our link, odoo.com/lcnews1. Again, that's odoo.com/lcnews1 to try Odoo now for free. According to court documents, he attempted to move his lifeless body back upstairs and allegedly bought rope at a local Walmart, which didn't work. So he returned to Walmart the following day to buy an axe and bags to dismember Justy's body. He allegedly cut up the body and scattered his body parts in different locations in Bay City. Tweedley allegedly told police he dumped his legs and arms in the Saginaw River and put his head and torso near the boat launch. Tweedley was officially charged for the heinous act 2 days after his arrest and now faces charges including open murder, disinterment, and mutilation of a body. As the community was left reeling after the shocking crime, many questioned why did this happen? According to a report by ABC 12, Tweedley's attorney is pushing for him to get a psychiatric exam. Tweedley reportedly has a history of mental illness and made troubling statements on social media in the past months and weeks leading up to the murder and even after. On September 15th, the day after police say Justy was killed, Tweedley posted on Facebook under a different username. He wrote, "I'm so tired I can't sleep at night. I cleaned my house today. I got back on a cleaning kick. Just wish I had the right cleaning supplies, LOL." He even reportedly made posts he was considering taking his own life. 2 days before his arrest, he wrote on social media, "Turning my life over to God." While the process to determine if Tweedley is competent enough to stand trial could take weeks, he remains behind bars in the Bay County Jail. Let's bring on retired FBI Colin Schmidt to break down this case even further. Colin, it's so great to see you. You know, this case is disturbing on so many levels. A man meets another man through a dating app, goes over to meet him, really murders his date in his own home. Allegedly, excuse me. What is your reaction to this case?
Well, it sounds like this person that was on the Grinder app that got the perpetrator was looking for a victim. Looks like he found somebody that was very vulnerable, and then probably thought that he could get away with it because this person didn't necessarily have a lot of family members or a lot of connection to the community. Then obviously this thing, went sideways very quickly, and then it was a horrific end to this person's life.
And do you think that the defendant in this case was using the app as a way to kind of hunt for victims in a way?
Well, I think that that level of violence shows me that this may have happened again. To do something that horrific shows a level of comfort with the way he attacked that victim. So, in terms of law enforcement, I'm sure they're looking at his phones and his background and everything else in his history to see if there's any other victims out there, especially the Grinder app, and looking at his activity on that app as far as who else has he had interactions with.
And it's not enough just to murder Justy Stillwell. He allegedly dismembered his body and scattered the pieces in different areas, which is just horrific. In your experience, what's the process like investigating a dismemberment case as opposed to just a regular murder case?
Well, it's basically common sense. I mean, you have to gather all the pieces together, literally, to make sure they're all part of the same body or crime scene. And then the fact that he did this demonstrates to me that he was He claimed that it was because he couldn't move the body, but I think it's more that he got some sort of perverse pleasure out of doing this to this poor person. And then, of course, like I said, the law enforcement is going to have to gather all the pieces of evidence together and then test, make sure they're all part of the same crime scene, and then from there go on to the next level in terms of each piece. Unfortunately, the way it is what it is. They'll try to find evidence off of that links the body or the pieces back to the person that did this crime.
And strangulating someone or choking someone to death seems like such a personal crime. But from what we know right now, that evening was the first time that they had actually met. What's your reaction to the defendant in this case allegedly choking the victim to death as opposed to, where we normally see like a shooting death or something a little less personal?
Well, that kind of method of killing somebody indicates a very emotional connection and a level of violence and emotional from two perspectives. Number one, either anger or from the perspective of he was getting some sort of positive feedback per se in his own mind from doing that to this victim. So for him to be that close and personal, it tells me number one that there was some sort of he was getting some sort of perverse pleasure out of this, and secondly, he was very comfortable with the way he was doing this, which would indicate to me that there's possibly other victims out there.
And a friend of the victim had alerted investigators. He went to meet up with what we now know as the user on the dating app under the handle Board. And then they tracked down Board to his location, Board being the defendant in this case. What all goes into retrieving cell phone data in cases like this? And do you think it helped investigators because Grindr does share users' locations?
Well, I think that's exactly what they did. The law enforcement has gotten very sophisticated with using cell phones and these apps, and as well as that, the apps have also gotten very sophisticated with interacting with law enforcement to give them the information they're looking for. But it may have just been a matter of getting the person's cell phone, firing up the Grinder app, and then just seeing where the location points are. But the other thing is, excuse me, they may have got the victim's cell phone and pulled the location data off of that, and then they could go ahead and track it back to the perpetrator's house. And then, of course, the next step would be once they get the perpetrator in custody, they're going to get his phone, and they're going to look at what's going on there, and certainly going to look at his Grinder activity.
And police didn't just go to Tweedley's home and arrest him. They were armed with tactical gear. Talk to me about how authorities determine if they're going to go that route and what all kind of goes into that process as opposed to kind of just walking up with two detectives and placing the suspect in cuffs.
Well, I think it's a matter of because of the violence that they suspected, the fact that there was a dismembered body. Automatically, the law enforcement officers are going to take all precautions to protect themselves, and also give that impression or give that make sure the person on the other side understands that they mean business, so they don't do anything stupid in terms of pulling out a weapon or try to flee. And so I think the law enforcement officers did it exactly right. They went in with a tactical team, got him in custody quietly and quickly, and then most importantly, they did it safely. And secondly, they were able to preserve all the evidence that was in that house.
And do you see this case going to trial? And if so, how important will the evidence be in this case?
I don't see it going to trial because the evidence is so overwhelming. Unless they opt for, I don't know if there's a death penalty in this particular jurisdiction. If that's the case, then the bad guy wouldn't have any reason not to go to trial. But in terms of the case itself or the trial, the evidence appears to be overwhelming against him. And then it's going to come right back to that location data on the two phones, as well as the Grinder app that's going to basically sink this guy as far as being the bad guy. And most likely, they got a confession from him because it sounds like he didn't have a lot of interaction or experience with law enforcement. So he wasn't prepared to stand up to questioning from detectives.
And I think this case is interesting in a way that it's so resonating in the sense that so many people use dating apps, whether it be men or women. They use dating apps to meet people, hoping to find love essentially. But how vulnerable do you think that people who use these apps, where, by all accounts, some people just go to meet up with other people, how vulnerable do you think users are on the apps, especially, from what we see on an app, it's just a picture, a face, and maybe a little blurb in their bio. But what's your thoughts, especially since so many people use dating apps, either it be Grinder, Hinge, Tinder, all of that sort?
Well, because of the anonymity of the apps themselves, they present a significant risk to people, regardless of the app. And for a person to use the app and then to meet that person and then go into their house without having a history with that person. And then there's also and I work in the private investigation field as well, that there's a lot of services now that will help somebody do a background on somebody they meet off these apps to ensure that, not necessarily ensure, but just give them some sort of comfort that the person's not, married or, God forbid, a violent perpetrator or have a history of as a sex offender. And so it really comes down to people need to use some common sense, although Mark Twain said common sense is not very common. And they just need to take a step back when they're using these apps and make sure they understand who they're interacting with and take proper procedures. If, for example, don't meet them in a place that's non-public on that first, interaction.
All right. Well, Colin, I appreciate your insight into this case so much. Before we sign you off, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just basically really want to say that people need to be really careful with these apps. It's filling a need in terms of our cyber culture now, but also is creating opportunities for some bad people to do bad things to people who are just out there looking for either a good time or for love.
All right. Colin Schmidt, again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Online court records show Robert Tweedley is still behind bars in the Bay County Jail in Michigan and is being held on $1 million bond. His next court date is slated for January. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Milner.